Hello, everyone. My name is Madison. I am 26 years old, and I run a small cafe in a mid sized American city. It is not a giant chain or a fancy bistro, but it is mine, and it has been a center of my life for the last 3 years. The cafe has 12 tables, a little chalkboard sign out front, and the smell of fresh coffee and baked bread hanging in the air every morning. I built it from the ground up with the help of my parents. My dad, Mark, is 58. My mom, Laura, is 55, and when I told them I wanted to open a cafe, they co-signed the loan without hesitation. They said they believed in me, and I promised that every cent I earned would go into paying it off. And I have kept that promise. Every shift, every pastry sold, every long day of wiping down tables and rolling silverware into napkins has been my way of proving that I was worthy of the chance they gave me. I have always been the responsible one in the family. Growing up, I was the child who got good grades, worked part-time jobs through high school, and even sent money home during college when my dad had health issues. I was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, helped babysit my cousin's children, and did not complain when I was asked to pitch in. My younger brother Tyler, who is 28, has always been the opposite. He is the fun one, the joker, the person who could charm anyone into laughing. My Aunt Brenda, who is my mom's sister and is 52 now, adored him for that. She always made it clear that she preferred him. When we were kids, if there were extra tickets to a ball game, Tyler got them. If there were gifts from Brenda, he got the more expensive ones. I never said anything about it, but it stung, and it planted this unspoken distance between me and her that only grew with time. So when Brenda walked into my cafe last month with 4 of her friends, I tried to push all of that history aside and just treat her like any other customer. They came in dressed like they were about to spend an afternoon at a country club, clicking their heels on the tile floor, laughing too loudly, and waving their hands around as if the place belonged to them. Brenda did not call me ahead of time or let me know she was bringing people. They sat down and immediately started ordering the most expensive items on the menu. They asked for multiple charcuterie boards, which are $35 each, fancy lattes with extra syrups and whipped cream, several smoothies, and a spread of desserts. The order kept climbing until it was about $230, which is a lot in a place like mine. At first, I was not worried. I thought Brenda might be arrogant, but surely she would pay her bill. I brought the receipt over and handed it to her. She looked me right in the eye and said, "Family does not pay, honey. Consider this free publicity." Her friends laughed and clapped their hands as if she had delivered a clever punchline. I told her calmly that this is my business, not a hobby, and that everyone pays like everyone else. She waved her hand and said, "You are being uptight. If you were smart, you would comp us and we would spread the word. That is what family is supposed to do." Then one of her friends added, "Cute place, but it will never last with prices like this," and another chimed in, "If you want success, you should give us a reason to tell people it is worth coming here." Something in me snapped. I had been polite, I had given them a chance, but their arrogance was unbearable. I called my manager over, and together we asked them to leave. I also issued them what we call a ban and fine slip. We have a clear policy, written on signs near the entrance and at the register, that states customers who cause disruption or refuse to pay can be fined $100 for cleaning and disruption. When we open a tab for a table, the guests sign an acknowledgement of our policies. Brenda and her friends had signed that paper without a second thought when they ordered. So I handed her the slip, told her she and her friends were no longer welcome, and expected her to either pay up or leave quietly. Instead, they laughed in my face. One of her friends crumpled the slip into a ball and tossed it onto the table like trash. Brenda sneered and said, "You will regret this," before storming out with her little entourage trailing behind her. The next day, I learned what she meant by that. Brenda started posting in the neighborhood Facebook group. She wrote long, dramatic posts about how my cafe abuses family, scams customers with fake fines, and preys on people by inventing policies to steal money. She went further and claimed that our kitchen was dirty and that she had seen a cockroach crawling under the counter. None of it was true. Our health inspections are spotless, and I take pride in keeping the cafe clean enough that you could eat off the floor. But gossip spreads faster than facts, and within a week, I saw a 20% drop in my regular customers. People would walk by, hesitate at the door, and then keep going. Others messaged me asking if it was true. Just when I thought it could not get worse, Brenda escalated. She actually filed a lawsuit against me. She claimed that I had extorted her with an illegal fine and that my cafe was unsafe for customers. When I received the court summons, I felt like my stomach dropped through the floor. I found out later that Brenda had hired a shady local lawyer under the table, and there were whispers that she even tried to bribe the judge. Suddenly, I was drowning in legal fees. I had to hire my own lawyer, and within the first month, I had already spent $7,000. I barely slept. I cried in the storage room more times than I care to admit, and for the first time since opening the cafe, I started to think that I might actually lose everything I had worked for. When we finally went to court, Brenda strutted in like she was the queen of the world. Her friends showed up as her witnesses. They told the judge they were traumatized by how I treated them, that I had humiliated them in front of other customers, and that the entire experience had left them shaken. Brenda sat there nodding along, smirking at me like she had already won. But here is what she did not know. My cafe has security cameras covering every angle of the dining area. My lawyer and I had pulled the footage and prepared it as evidence. The moment we played the video, everything changed. The judge watched as Brenda and her friends ordered food, laughed loudly, mocked me, and then flat out refused to pay. You could hear Brenda's exact words, "Family does not pay, clear as day." You could hear their laughter when they dismissed the fine slip. The smug look on Brenda's face slowly drained away as the judge's expression shifted from neutral to sharp disbelief. When the footage ended, the courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Brenda and asked her if she had anything to say. She stammered, tried to backpedal, and her lawyer muttered something about miscommunication, but it was too late. The entire case collapsed in that moment. The judge dismissed her claims and told her she was dangerously close to facing penalties for filing a frivolous lawsuit. I walked out of that courthouse shaking, not from fear this time, but from relief. I had won. The story should have ended there, but it did not. News of the case spread fast in our district. People were fascinated by the story of the aunt who sued her niece over cafe food. Local news outlets picked it up, and suddenly my little cafe was in headlines and on the evening broadcast. Customers who had never heard of me before showed up out of curiosity, and regulars who had drifted away came back in droves, eager to show support. The tables were full, the lines stretched out the door on weekends, and my sales doubled almost overnight. What Brenda meant for revenge turned into the best marketing I could never have afforded. The cafe has been busier than ever. What started as a nerve-wracking ordeal with Brenda has snowballed into the kind of attention I never could have bought with ads or promotions. I used to scrape by, pulling in around $5,000 a week if the weather was good and people were in the mood for pastries. Now, after all the local news coverage and the wave of support that followed, I am averaging $9,000 a week in sales. The jump has been life-changing. The first Saturday after the story broke, I showed up at 6 in the morning to start the ovens, and there was already a couple waiting outside. By the time I unlocked the doors, the line stretched around the block. People I had never seen before were snapping pictures of the chalkboard sign, filming little TikToks in front of the pastry case, and asking if I was the Madison from the news. It felt surreal. I have always been proud of my cafe, but suddenly it was not just my customers who cared, it was strangers who drove in from neighboring towns, telling me they read about me in the paper or saw the clip on TV and wanted to support me. With a rush came the need for reinforcements. I hired 2 more part-timers, college students who were eager to learn how to steam milk properly and assemble sandwiches without sending lettuce flying across the counter. Training them was hectic, but the relief of not being buried under endless orders made it worth every second. My staff has grown into this tight-knit little family. We joke that the cafe feels like a train station sometimes. The constant buzz of people coming and going, coffee cups clinking, chairs scraping, and the faint sound of music battling against the chatter. Financially, the change is astonishing. For the first time since opening, I have started to think about expansion. I can pay my loan faster, reinvest in better equipment, and even set aside savings for myself. I had been living on such a tight budget for so long that the idea of actually having a cushion feels unreal. My parents are over the moon. They drop by more often, sometimes just to sit at a table and quietly beam as they watch the place thrive. My dad keeps joking that he should start charging me for being my unofficial security guard, and my mom says she has never seen me look this happy. But success has a shadow. Brenda has not spoken to me since the court case ended, though I know from whispers and family get-togethers that she is still seething. She has been complaining to anyone who will listen that I destroyed her reputation, that I humiliated her in front of the whole community, and that I turned her own family against her. None of that is true, but the idea that she thinks she is the victim after what she put me through would be laughable if it were not so exhausting. She refuses to take accountability, and instead she paints herself as a martyr who is punished for trying to support family. My brother Tyler has not made things easier. He has always been Brenda's favorite, and her loyalty to him has built a bond that he refuses to question. He has said repeatedly that I overreacted, that it was just one meal, and that I should have comped it because she is family. He sees it as a matter of keeping the peace, of swallowing my pride for the sake of harmony. He does not understand that this cafe is not a side project or a hobby. It is my livelihood, my future, the result of years of sweat and sacrifices. When I told him that I had already sunk thousands of dollars into legal fees just to defend myself from her lies, he shrugged and said that Brenda probably did not mean for it to go that far. It is hard to explain to someone like Tyler that Brenda's actions were not a misunderstanding or a slip. They were deliberate choices, escalating step by step, from refusing to pay, to smearing me online, to dragging me into court with fabricated witnesses. It was not about the meal. It was about her power trip and the belief that she could bulldoze me the way she always had when I was a kid. Tyler refuses to see that side of her. To him, she is still the fun aunt who spoiled him, laughed at his jokes, and never told him no. So when he confronted me last week and said I had overblown everything, I finally snapped and told him if I comped $230 for everyone who claimed family, I'd be bankrupt. It turns out that Brenda was not done with me after the lawsuit. For a while, I thought silence meant she had finally given up, but it was only the calm before her next storm. About 3 weeks after court ended, I got an unexpected visit from the city inspectors. At first, my stomach dropped when I saw the clipboard in his hand and the official badge clipped to his shirt. He explained that someone had filed a complaint about food safety violations at my cafe. Of course, he could not say who filed it, but I knew immediately. It had Brenda's fingerprints all over it. For a second, I felt that old panic creep back in, the same feeling I had during the lawsuit when I thought everything I worked for could vanish because of her spite. But instead of spiraling, I took a deep breath and walked him through every inch of my cafe. We keep our kitchen spotless. Every surface gets wiped down multiple times a day, food is stored properly, thermometers are checked and logged, and my staff is trained to handle everything by the book. I have always been a little obsessive about cleanliness, so there was nothing for him to find. He spent almost 2 hours checking the freezers, refrigerators, food prep areas, restrooms, and dining floor. When he was done, he smiled and said everything looked excellent. The best part? He stayed for a coffee afterward. He told me he had been doing inspections for years, and that my cafe was one of the cleanest small businesses he had ever checked. He bought a blueberry scone to go, and the next week, he came back on his day off just to sit down and eat another one. Since then, he has become a regular, stopping by every few days for coffee and a pastry, always joking that Brenda did him a favor by introducing him to his new favorite spot. That was the exact moment when I realized how powerless Brenda really was. She could make calls, spread rumors, and try to stir trouble, but she could not break what I had built because the truth was always stronger than her lies. Of course, she did not stop with the inspection stunt. She went back online, posting the same recycled lies about my cafe being dirty, overpriced, or hostile to customers. But something had shifted. After the court case, people knew the truth. My reputation had grown beyond her gossip, and now her posts backfired. Instead of people whispering or questioning me, strangers started stepping in to shut her down. On one neighborhood thread, she claimed once again that she saw bugs in my cafe and that I threatened her friends. This time, the first reply was someone saying, "Brenda, stop embarrassing yourself. You lost in court. Let it go." Another person chimed in that they had eaten at my cafe just the day before and the food was amazing. Someone else posted a picture of their latte art and tagged me, saying they loved the atmosphere. Reading those comments felt like drinking a warm cup of coffee on a freezing day. For years, I had been the quiet, responsible one who worked hard but never asked for recognition. Brenda had always been the loud one, twisting stories to her advantage. For once, people saw through her noise and came to my defense without me having to lift a finger. It was not just my regular customers anymore, it was strangers who had only read about me but still felt compelled to protect my name from her lies. It made me realize that my cafe was no longer just my dream. It had become part of the community, something bigger than Brenda's bitterness. And for me, that shift was priceless. It gave me a sense of validation I had never felt before. Watching Brenda scramble and fail while people defended me without hesitation was more satisfying than any sales boost or news coverage. It was proof that her grip on me, the shadow she had cast since I was a kid, was finally gone. I can't describe how satisfying it is to see strangers defend me. We just celebrated our cafe's 1-year anniversary, and it still feels unreal to say that. A year ago, I was terrified that Brenda's smear campaign and the lawsuit would sink everything before it had a chance to grow. Now, I look back on those nights when I sat alone in the cafe after closing, crying into a cold cup of coffee and wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life, and I realize how far things have come. The anniversary celebration was more than just a milestone for the business, it was a personal victory lap. We planned it carefully, offering specials on pastries and a live acoustic set from a local musician who had been one of our earliest customers. I arrived at 5 in the morning to start prepping, expecting a steady crowd. By 7, there was already a line down the block. Families with kids, couples holding hands, groups of teenagers filming TikToks in front of our chalkboard sign. It was overwhelming. By noon, every seat was full and people were standing shoulder to shoulder waiting for their drinks. I had staff running extra trays of muffins and scones out from the kitchen just to keep up. When the day ended, I checked the register totals and just stared. It was the highest single-day sales we had ever done, triple what we used to make on an average weekend. That kind of momentum has carried over. Weekly sales are strong enough now that I am seriously considering opening a second location next year. It is not just a dream anymore, it is something I can actually plan for, with real numbers to back it up. I have been touring potential spaces in nearby neighborhoods, weighing the costs, sketching out what the menu would look like if we expanded. For the first time since this journey began, I feel like I am not just surviving but thriving. And then there is Brenda. If I had to sum up her position in the community now, it would be this: she is a walking punchline. At church, where she used to hold court and gossip with her little circle, people whisper when she walks in. I overheard someone say, "That's the lady who sued her niece over a free lunch," and the smirk that followed told me everything. Her name is practically shorthand for ridiculous behavior. She avoids me completely. If I happen to be at a family gathering, she slips out early or pretends to be glued to her phone. The woman who once tried to crush me with lies and legal fees cannot even make eye contact anymore. The irony of all this hit me hardest a few weeks ago when her so-called friends, the same group who had sat in my cafe, refused to pay and laughed in my face, walked back in as if nothing had ever happened. I recognized them instantly. They looked around nervously, probably expecting me to throw them out, but I smiled as warmly as I could, seated them at a table, and took their order like any other customers. Part of me wanted to confront them, to remind them of the spectacle they caused, but I chose the sweeter revenge. I treated them with flawless service, delivered their food promptly, and when the bill came, I watched them place their credit card down without a single word of protest. They paid in full, and to top it off, they left a generous tip. Watching them slink out the door, knowing that they had willingly paid for the very food they once mocked, felt better than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Revenge, it turns out, tastes better than any coffee I have ever brewed. Looking back, this entire ordeal taught me two lessons I will carry with me forever. The first is that you cannot let relatives, or anyone really, walk all over you just because they feel entitled to your hard work. Blood ties do not give someone the right to exploit you. The second is that sometimes the best revenge is not about yelling, not about fighting, and not even about winning in court. It is about succeeding in spite of them. Brenda set out to humiliate me, to ruin what I built, and to prove she could still control the narrative. Instead, she ended up exposing herself to everyone, and her arrogance became the very thing that lifted me higher. My cafe is thriving, my name is cleared, and I did not just win against Brenda, I rubbed her nose in her own arrogance, and everyone saw it happen. Thank you so much for watching this video and sticking with the story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Your support means everything, and it helps us keep sharing more stories with you. Stay loyal, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.